Hello, everyone. I welcome you to this exciting moment with Chigozendiwo. As an independent analyst and a deep thinker, I'm here to review the position of the court ruling in Finland today, indicting Mazi Simon Ekpa of inciting terrorism and other sundry matters. Yes, of course, it is no longer in news that the news broke out with several reactions. Some are moody, some are apprehensive, and some are excited with this development. Excited in the sense that some are anticipating that possibly Simon Ekpa will end up in prison, while some are also excited because it will definitely turn out for good, especially to those who believe in the cause of liberation and self-preservation of the Biafran people. Now, we are going to look into this case and decision by the Prosecution Council, analyze it objectively, and it will be very exciting and interesting. I will crave your indulgence. Just take time to follow me as we navigate through all these events that's unfolded today. Recall, it started about 10 months ago when Simon Ekpa was eventually summoned for questioning. And thereafter, a defense was instituted after the court proceedings commenced officially. Of course, Mazi Simon Ekpa instituted a defense counsel to defend his innocence, which eventually was called to the booth, and he maintained his innocence. He pleaded not guilty. And if Mazi Simon Ekpa has pleaded guilty, that would have saved so much time. But then Mazi Simon Ekpa pleaded not guilty of the alleged count charges levied against him, bordering on incitement of terrorism and other related offenses. And eventually, the court commenced their defense. The prosecution counsel has to also argue their case, while the defending counsel also have to do their job. And the good thing in this is that it was facilitated within a reasonable time frame, contrary to what is happening to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in DSS solitary confinement. So I will tell you the reason why it is not a dead end. The ruling by the prosecution counsel regarding Mazi Simon Ekpa case is not a dead end, because any case that could be challenged or appealed definitely is not the end. So there is a window for appealing, for challenging that pronouncement by the court of law, as Mazi Simon Ekpa has remained undeterred, unwavering over the recent pronouncement. And the legal counsel to Mazi Simon Ekpa has vowed to challenge and contest that particular judgment by appealing the judgment, as he have expressed not being satisfied with the outcome or position of the prosecution judge or who ruled the case. So there is nothing to cry about. There is no cause for alarm. Some people are already depressed, and some are feeling sense of guilt. Some are believing that it was not fairly treated. There was no justice in that process, and that Simon Ekpa was a freedom fighter. And of course, his people are being suppressed and subjugated. He's fighting to defend his people. But the truth is that the Finland Prosecution Council have come up with their defense, and eventually the case has been determined at the first instance. But unless the defending counsel fails to appeal the case, then such verdict might possibly stand. But if eventually they contest and appeal the case, definitely the case has not ended. Yes, by that 6 years, it simply implies that Simon Ekpa will serve for 3 years concurrently. So that is just the case, pending on the determination of the appeal, because definitely Simon Ekpa Legal Counsel has indicated interest, and Simon Ekpa is unwavering, because for him to have pleaded guilty means he is not perturbed. He's unwavering in his faith, tenacity, confidence in the quest and in pursuance of the restoration of the Biafran state, which he believes is his rights under the law, protected under the law. And the Finland Prosecution Council does not fault that particular instance or position. They never said that the pursuit for the determination of the restoration of Biafra was wrong, but what they cited, the very reason why Mazi Simon Ekpa was indicted, is that the first is that Simon Ekpa was inciting terrorism. Of course, when you go through his S handle, you will see some very gory videos and certain escalations. And sometimes Simon Ekpa do claim responsibility of such actions. Possibly that could have been reason why they based their judgment in that regard. And his statement now, he is pursuing the independence of the Eastern region as a pro-Biafran agitator. He said he is pursuing the independence of the Eastern region, known as Biafra, illegally, through illegal process. What the Finland authority faulted was what they call or tag to be illegal process. But the move for the freedom or independent state of Biafra was not faulted, because Finland also understands that it is being protected under the law or international law, which they are also a signatory to. The right to self-defense is not a crime. But according to the verdict or the sentence, they said that Simon Ekpa was pursuing the freedom, the independence of the Eastern region, known as Biafra, through illegal process, which means the process he embarked on was considered as illegal and not the entire process of the restoration, or which expresses the eagerness of a people dissatisfied within the confinement known as Nigeria, who are now agitating, we are no longer safe or secured within this contraction, and we thereby, of course, invoke the doctrine of necessity or the right to self-determination encapsulated in international law, which is part of the fundamental right of people, of a people. The right to freedom of association and expression. So it ought to be made clear here, because reviewing the court sentence, or judgment, it's very clear. They are very articulate in that position. Now, what does that tell you? We're going to review that in a matter of minutes. That Simon Ekpa was inciting terrorism and also was pursuing the independence of the Biafran state through illegal means. They didn't say that the pursuit or the ambition expressed by so many individuals from the Eastern region who believe that they want to separate or secede from Nigeria was wrong. But they faulted the process embarked by Simon Ekpa as illegal because of what they believe his programs and antecedents through his S handle and display of certain gory videos and the rest of them and claiming responsibility of such. They said that that is incitement of terrorism. Now again, recall Simon Ekpa said he is waiting for such opportunity to be summoned in the court of law, that he wants to take the Biafran cause to the global stage. Now the question is, has he achieved that? Of course, today, virtually all the medias, international medias, took that news to the global stage. Despite the pronouncement by the courts or the sentence of 6 years in prison, which concurrently runs for 3 years, which is subject to challenge or appeal should Simon Ekpa decides otherwise. Of course, the legal counsel have indicated interest in that regard. They're going to appeal that judgment. So, but one thing has been achieved, taking the Biafran cause to the global stage. There are many people who don't know there was something as Biafra, who even during the war, the Biafran Nigerian Civil War in 1960 to 1967 to 1970, some nations of the world weren't aware that something was going on. There are people who felt deprived, who felt subjugated, who felt the risk of extinction within the same geographical space known as Nigeria, and the fact they want to pull out as a way of preserving their culture, their posterity, and their ideology or heritage. Some people weren't aware. There was certain propagandas that was, of course, tailored to suit certain narratives that was created by the British government then. But now, in this wake of technology, information age, people, once the pronouncement was made, what was there? Pro-Biafran agitator, which invariably means after 59 years of plunging into the most deadliest civil war, that yet an army of a people are rising again to still demand for the restoration of that state that once existed. What does that tell you? There is something fundamentally wrong with the foundation of Nigeria. The foundation of Nigerian existence or continuity is hanging on a thread. It doesn't matter how much denial, especially the political class, may want to leave. But the truth is that there is something fundamentally wrong. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been the quest for agitation in the first place. Yes, several constitutional lawyers has faulted the constitution of the current constitution, that it was not people's oriented. It was not drafted by the people. It does not represent the interests and the collective view or perspective of the Nigerians, the indigenous people, with the plurality, multi-dimensional, cultural, and ideological. It is not harmonizing. So it doesn't address the needs of the current Nigeria. The reason why not just the Easterners, the Oduduwas were also asking for Oduduwa nation. What could have led to that if they were comfortable within the Nigerian states? Some group of people wouldn't have emerged demanding for Oduduwa nation. That the continued existence of the Yorubas have been threatened even within the confederation known as Nigeria, which boils down to certain foundational issues that need to be addressed. The reason why, of course, Aburi Accord was called, and recently the confab of 2014, and so many others. There have been several clamors to address that imbalance, injustice, or perceived injustice, marginalization, or subjugation within the system, which some political class or the ruling class has been paying lip service to, thinking by denying the reality, the problem on ground, that will solve the solution. That once again has brought Nigeria into the public space on the spot. That there are a group of Nigerian or a part or a region of Nigeria that is asking, agitating for an independent state. You see, the Bible says, if they have known, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. If they have known, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. If the devil knew that at death, Jesus would become more popular, become more powerful, more glorified, he wouldn't have instigated his arrest and eventually crucifixion. That is what I wanted to point out now. It is not just about just the pronouncement. It is a revelation of the rejection, dissatisfaction of a people who has been disgruntled, who has felt marginalized, subjugated, not integrated within the configuration called Nigeria. What informed the agitation in the first place? Simon Ekpa was just a figurehead. Of course, some people, even within the same struggle, like the DOS, as some part of IPOB, they were fighting Simon Ekpa, considering him as a usurper, somebody who have come to usurp, who have come to hijack in the absence of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, after his extraordinary rendition. So there is a very sharp conflict, disagreement, and dichotomy that ensued, challenging the credibility and the validation of Simon Ekpa as, of course, the front runner of that quest for the restoration of the Biafran state. That was what exactly played out. The reason why the DOS and every other vested interest were fighting Simon Ekpa, because they felt they were just relegated, and the presence of Simon Ekpa made them irrelevant or expose their weakness or ineptitudeness to align with the or sustain the tempo while Mazin Namdekan was out. Mazin Namdekan purely believed in diplomatic engagement and the rest. While Simon Ekpa believed in the liberation struggle as the only way to facilitate the restoration of the Biafran state. Now, that is by the way, but the truth is that Simon Ekpa fulfilled one of his objective or noble intention is to take the Biafra. He said that the Biafra will be discussed. Biafran issue will be discussed at the global stage. And that is just what is happening in Finland today. Do you get it? The White House, the most powerful medias in the world are carrying this. And it's sending a signal to the entire world. There is undying quest for the liberation of a people who felt subjugated, deprived, sidelined within the confederation known as Nigeria. If after 59 years or thereabouts of plunging into the most cruel and disturbing civil war that allegedly claimed the life of over 5 million, where children were starved to death, and the rest of them were history. And such imbalance grievances has not been addressed, which means the Nigerian leadership or the leadership within the Nigerian states has not been sincere. If they have failed to address the nagging issues, if they have been able to show political will and sincerity to address and create a balance in the system where every person involved, every ethnic nationality will feel a sense of belonging, that would have died the idea of the quest for the restoration, to be resurrected. What that is saying now, by implication, the quest for the restoration of the Biafran state has been resurrected, and it has assumed an international dimension. That is just the case. That is just the truth. So, for Simon, by his faith, he felt fulfilled despite the position or the ruling that has been made, which definitely his legal counsel will challenge in the court of law. That is one important thing we have to note about that. Now, again, he was charged because of violation of the Lawyers Act. Violation of the Lawyers Act. And again, he was also charged for evasion of tax. Evasion of tax. There are certain monies, according to the report, that came into his account, maybe during the volunteer funding or fundraising and the rest of them, that should have been taxed or disclosed, which eventually was not. So some people argue that the reason why they have to, of course, pass that sentence was because of the tax evasion, this purported tax evasion. You know, these white Western people, they don't play with tax. You see, they don't play with tax, especially they will want you to spend every dime you have made from them, from their region. This is the reason why Africa must evolve. Africa must rise to develop their own region. There is no place like home. There is no place at home. You cannot be treated, no matter whether you have the international passport, you are a citizen of such countries, They cannot take you as an indigenous person. Africans, the indigenous people of Africa, must rise to build their own continent. Nobody will build that for you. Nobody will defend your independence. Nobody will fight for you. These people careless. They are only interested in the economic gain, exploitation of human and resources from the African soil. That is just what they need. Most of them couldn't barely survive without Africa. The resources from Africa is what is sustaining them. So Africans must begin to have a mental revolution, begin to think, how do we build Africa? How do we make Africa the center of attraction, not exploitation? We are coming again with more loaded development regarding these updates. It will shock you. In the next editions, don't forget, of course, to turn on the notification buttons, because you will be very shocked to see what is the next line of action. All hope is not lost for those who believe in the cause of Mazi Simon Ekpa. Well, such is life. Of course, for every price, there is a cause for it. And definitely, Simon Ekpa is unwavering in his tenacity, and possibly nobody knows the position of that pin, unless otherwise. Of course, we'll still bring you the analysis of same. Thanks for watching.